Do you suffer from stress, anxiety, or depression? Do you find it hard to focus or to contain your emotions? Any of these things can take you down. So, what then are your personal health practices? If you don't yet have an integral or holistic wellness practice, you're in the right place. Podcast host Susan Axelrod, the confidence coach, has been practicing holistic wellness for 25 years. Along the way, Qigong and Tai Chi found her. After tiptoeing in, she dove into a committed practice and became a teacher and integral wellness consultant. She'll tell you Qigong and Tai Chi changed her life. In this podcast, she interviews practitioners, inviting them to share their stories about how these practices changed their lives too. Go grab your journal. At the top of a clean page, write down, "I want to feel better." Then take a breath and tune in to see if Qigong and Tai Chi can help. Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of this spectacular podcast series. These conversations with practitioners have surprised me and delighted me. Today will be no exception. I am so happy to be speaking with my friend and colleague, Nadine Searle. Now, in this series, I have made a decision to read the bio exactly instead of speaking organically as I usually do, because part of my intention is for you to see the different kinds of people who are practicing this special modality. Nadine Searle is the Calmer Self coach and a cancer coach. She tailors programs for clients and works one-to-one with individuals. She also facilitates workshops and speaks at events, sharing her story of how she went from chaos to calm and how she now enjoys the wonderful life she has built for herself. She always says she learned the hard way, so you don't have to. At events, she shares tips and coping strategies to combat the stress and anxiety of busy, everyday lives and lift depression to support emotional health and well-being. Nadine is also a cancer survivor. Nadine, hello, my friend.
Hello, Susan. What a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. Well, it was hard for me not to go organic because of our long association and many podcast conversations ourselves. But this is a very special podcast series. As I said, I actually used the word spectacular because of what I'm learning from these practitioners of Qigong and Tai Chi. So I want to get right to it today. Why don't you share with us your story about how Qigong changed your life?
Yes, I'm more than happy to. And we have had, like you say, many conversations about this. But for me, it was the start, really, of me stepping into what I so needed back in the day when I needed to go from stress to serenity myself. Before I set up my business, before I started helping others, I needed it all for myself. And I was one of the classic people that said, I can't meditate, I can't be still, I can't be quiet. And that's what I needed. So when I found Qigong, which was a little, well, it wasn't so little actually, but a local class to me with a wonderful practitioner, I had no idea what it was. I was drawn to it, like sometimes the universe sends us these messages, thankfully. And I went along to a class, and that is what changed my life, really. It was the start of me finding that I can find some peace and some stillness and some calm, which I really, really needed in my life. And that might sound a little bit like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But it was that first step for me to join a class, to do what I like to call moving meditation, because it's not sitting still. I didn't think I could do that. I can. I've learned how to do it now. But it was the start for me to actually join in with a class, being led by somebody, which was also helpful. I followed what she said. So I could then have that moment of mindfulness that I needed, switching off all the busyness that was going on in my head and focus. And I'd never experienced that in my life before, Susan, never. So that introduction to a Qigong class was the start of everything for me. So it changed how I look at things. It changed what I do for myself. It helped me step into the calmer version of myself, as I say, which I so needed.
Mm.
And then longer down the line, but probably we're going back about 17, maybe 20 years. I don't know, quite a long time ago when I did that. Now I can actually integrate that into the work that I do with my clients to help them find calmness and peace. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I hope that answered your question a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So in particular, you know me, I'm looking down because I'm taking notes, Nadine.
Yes,
So I want to say that you have hit on one of the most urgent reasons that I created, set up, recruited, and I'm offering this podcast series, and I'm sponsoring it with my own business. I feel like you just shared the story of so many people of our time. Now, that was 15, 20 years ago, you just said, but the
yes,
story of people of our time where there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of depression, but even less than those extremes, there's just an emotional unsettledness, a mental an unwellness. And here you told us basically you needed something, and you heard about meditation, and you heard about, oh, you have to be still and be quiet. And you said, I can't meditate, and I can't be still. And then you found a local Qigong class, which I really love because I also speak with teachers and I'm encouraging them to confidently teach forth. And even though you didn't have any idea what it was, it sounds to me like you needed something so much. And whatever you read about the class, you thought could help you. And that was your impetus to go in. Is that the way it was?
yes, exactly. And it is so much. I do believe, and like you say, when you really need something, put some vibe out there. I don't know what it is. I don't need to understand it totally, but things come to you. So there was something that drew me to it. As I say, I didn't know what it was. And Qigong, now my understanding is it's a gentler form of Tai Chi. I didn't know. I'd heard of Tai Chi. Most people have. But again, I thought, this isn't something I understand. I don't know how to do it. But it was wonderful to go along to this class and just give myself up to the practitioner, the wonderful lady that was leading us, Catherine. I'll say her name, Catherine Burnett. She was amazing, and I found I could in my own way. I got better and better at it. But my first class, although I was nervous and I didn't know what I was doing, I really enjoyed it, and I found that it was something I could do. And I thought, oh, I'm quite keen to get better. I did share in a previous podcast with you that first session when I went along, emotions came up in me that I wasn't expecting. It moved something in me. And I think the very nature of Qigong, and as I say, this kind of moving meditation, we talk about it a lot, don't we, Susan? That moving the body physically releases, it moves emotions. It's so powerful, isn't it? And I had never experienced that. I didn't know what was happening. But
Nadine, the same thing happened to me. This is a good time for full disclosure to let our listeners and our viewers know we have an entire podcast series called um, How Qigong Creates a Calm and Confident Life.
yes,
And I'll put that in the show notes as well. So you're talking about, you went in, you took that class, you called it in by saying, I need something. I don't know if you noticed in the introduction, but I literally said that. Take out your journal page and
yes,
say, I want to feel better.
I love
And
that.
then, but you apparently had this conversation with yourself. I really want to say this clearly, distinctly right now, where at some point you must have said, I need something, I need help.
Yes, yes,
And that is no shame. In fact, it's an elevated sense of resilience and personal agency. And then you went there. I had the same experience when I started in Qigong several years ago. only several years, only really not even several, a few, I not infrequently had full tears coming down my face
Yeah.
quietly. I
Yeah.
was doing it online, and
Yeah.
I quietly experienced that emotion come up, which of course we know is a release, right?
Mm, mm. Which is amazing, isn't it? Again, I didn't know what that was. Now I know how valuable that is to actually move things and get things out. I obviously had a lot stored inside me, so that happened quite frequently when I was doing the movements, and I was doing, and I think it's a bit different to what you do. Correct me if I'm wrong. I was doing a set movements every time I learnt this practice, and it was Shibashi 18 movements that we were doing together. And there was something so beautiful about, and simple about the movements. They were really simple to do, I'm glad to say. And it just moved things in my body that I had no idea needed moving. I didn't know. And you're right. I was asking for help. I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know who to ask. I didn't even know, I couldn't actually verbally say what I needed. But like you say, I was drawn to this and it was what I needed. And that, again, to get everybody to recognize that, it doesn't matter. If you feel there's a need, you don't need to know the answers. You don't need to know where to go. Just put something out there. Say it out loud. We believe, don't we? Both of us, in the power of saying something out loud. And just actually going, I didn't know how much I needed this. But I stepped into something that I was drawn to, and it was amazing. It gave me such a step up to change things, and it was wonderful to do.
So, something is coming up. I'm going to ask if you would consider doing a second episode of this podcast on the topic of how Qigong changed your life from the grief that you just indicated you had stuck in you. Now, you're also a grief coach.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to park that over there, and I know you're going to say yes to that. So I don't want to get into that right now. We'll do that, but I want to say qigong. What came up? You did the a form, almost like a dance of 18 movements. You learned them by someone leading you. And
Yes,
then you learned them, you copied, you eventually learned and integrated them for yourself such that you could do the movements
yeah,
yourself. And then you came in and your muscle memory began to know what to do. So the basis of Qigong is Qi. Qi is energy. And in Qigong, we learn to be in what Dr. Roger Yanka, the head of the institute where I trained, calls presencing. You use the word still or
yeah,
stillness.
mm,
And that's really the underlying basis of what Qigong is that you actually learn to come to this still, present, mindful space in loving commitment to self, in not being afraid of what you're going to hear about when you get quiet yourself.
yeah,
From
yeah,
what I read in your bio was she went from chaos to calm. So sometimes when we're in chaos, we have perseverating thoughts in our mind. It's hard to
yes,
quiet down. And if you do quiet down, you begin to think about all the things in the past, all the things in the future.
yes,
And in Qigong, so I spent a few months, my first training, really coming into that alignment, learning that energy, learning that energetic stillness. And then we also did certain forms, but not in the same way. So later I got trained in the what we call the Tai Chi 9. And so
yeah,
that was more akin to what you were doing, is a 9-part form that's like a dance. It's so amazing, Nadine, isn't it?
it really is, isn't it? And I can't emphasize that enough, that, people that haven't tried it, to try it, because you just never know. It might be exactly what you need, because that was my experience. But I think as well, I don't want people to be scared that you have to learn like a dance, like you say. Doesn't have to be that difficult, does it? I did practice. I went to a lot of classes. I really enjoyed them, and I learned how to do it. And there's lots online that you can tap into if you want to. But the principles, and we have shared that in our previous podcast, haven't we, Susan? That can be really, really simple. And sometimes it is just, and I sometimes just do a little practice myself when I need it in the moment. And it is just standing, being still, connecting with the earth beneath us, with the sky above us, having that flow. We always do that up and down, don't we, with our breath, so that we feel that in our bodies and that stillness and that peace. But I say stillness, but there's movement too, isn't there? Which I love. This wonderful. You've got both of
Me
them.
too. I heard you. I wrote that down.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
it is. It's wonderful, isn't it, to have that? And you can do it. And I always say, you know, you can do it as simply and as quickly as in a few breaths. It doesn't have to take a long time. You don't have to practice these set movements. You can if you want to. You know, you can dip into it any which way you want to. And that's what I want to get across to people, that we can just do it by the few. And you've demonstrated them many times, haven't you? This just flow up and down of breath, or body, mind working together, and getting our heart involved as well. It can be that simple, can't it? And that's wonderful.
Yes, I just did this. I don't know with whom I was. I was in person with someone. They were in distress of whatever sort. I should say stress, or perhaps distress. And I found myself just standing where I was and just doing a full body, come into alignment, and using the breath, a practice that underlies all of this. I love that you have said easy and simple many times already. I've circled a few through this conversation. This is the one thing, and I'm glad that you said that. When I use the word dance, it's like a dance. We don't want to create a barrier for people who might say, well, I don't dance. And so you're 100% right. Once you go into it, you can easily find it online, countless videos, or like you can find a local class in your community, and you can easily drop in and listen and see what speaks to you. Now, I will say, Nadine, to be honest, early on in the early classes, when we just did the flowing motion, it's called, the hands up, the hands down, connected to the breathing, slow, gentle, it was irritating to me, Nadine. It was grating to me to be, and I was like, this is stupid, to tell you the truth, which of course would be keeping with my former Taipei, as you know, right? Yeah. And what is this? Why are we standing here? No exaggeration, for 10 minutes, doing this. Why are we doing this? My mind, it was hard to, and I was already deep into a lot of these various modalities of quieting the mind and personal transformation, but that did great on me. And I'm here to say, I'm so proud of myself and happy for myself that I stayed with it, because learning how you can bring in the energy is really the whole deal. We only have a few more minutes now, Nadine, but I really love really what you've shared with us today. You went from, I can't meditate, I can't be still, to I needed something, I wanted to feel better. I found something, I went in, it was easy because I was led. It was simple movement. And then I went from stuck to movement, I wrote down. And you said it even moved something in me emotionally. And these are the things that I have on my mind today, for us to be sharing out with others who are sitting on a couch, perhaps using a substance or having a behavior that's not supporting their integral wellness, who might be in a little bit of what I call depressive, which is not diagnosed with depression, or having low personal agency. And so that's really everything, you and I, we don't plan our conversations, but every single thing that you said today sort of speaks to that. So tell us, where can people find you?
The best place to find what I'm talking about and our podcast and everything is on my YouTube channel. And that is just Calmer Self. Look for that and you'll find it. We've got all of our podcasts on there, me and you talking, Susan, haven't we? And lots more about what I do and how I help people. There are some little meditation things that people can dip into if they want to. But I'd also just like to quickly say, on your point about, we can do movement, we can do stillness, we can choose. When I was going through, and you mentioned about my cancer diagnosis, when I was going through a real tough time with my treatment, with my chemotherapy, a little bit of gentle movement was so helpful. And I really, really lent into my Qigong practice because I could do that. I could do it sitting, I could do it standing, I could do it to whatever level I was able to. But that movement, not just physical, because we need that obviously, especially when we're not feeling the best, but the mental sort of tuning in did me so much good. So again, it's something I'm sharing now with other people because I really want to do that. But again, just to really highlight that it can be whichever way you want. You can do a whole set, you can take, like you say, 10 minutes just breathing up and down, and it can be frustrating, or you can just do a little bit and dip in, but it's all beneficial, and that's what I really want to emphasize.
Yeah, thank you. So as a cancer coach now, this is something that you can do with clients. And also, honestly, I'm not exaggerating to our viewers and listeners. Nadine and I both have learned in our own journey, which is why we're here today, that even 1 minute,
Yeah.
1 minute can make a difference of
Yes.
going from stuck to movement,
Yeah.
to really, live the life that you want to live. Well, my friend, we did it again. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you about that other episode on grief. We'll get
Yes.
that going, and I'll be happy to see you again for that episode. As always, thank you, and I'll see you soon.